It's a threat that could change the course of humanity, and it's not what you think.
We're gonna miss the good old days.
What good old days?
When people were killed by other people.
Just like the Hollywood film I, Robot, what if machines started developing their own artificial intelligence?
Robots might naturally evolve.
It's a real enough danger that Cambridge University has set up a new center to study the pitfalls posed by artificial intelligence. And they're not the only ones.
If there's a transition into a situation where perhaps the balance of power changes between us and artificial intelligence, I think perhaps the balance of power changes between us and artificial intelligence, I think that is far more likely. Perhaps the balance of power changes between us and artificial intelligence, I think that is far more likely to be something that happens.
Billions of dollars are being spent each year on developing artificial intelligence in military systems. The US has already developed a slew of high-tech gadgets, from pilotless drones to machines that can run faster than Usain Bolt. Other robots with artificial intelligence include creations that can even walk on ice or detect uneven terrain. Many of us may have visions like this scene from the hit Terminator, where the Skynet military system is destroying the planet. It doesn't look like it'll happen in our lifetime. No one ever really does know what the future holds.
I'll be back.
Phil Hahn, CNN, London.
For the first time in history, we're seeing the successful development and demonstration of general-purpose AI. Its name is AlphaGo, and it was made by Google's DeepMind division. The AlphaGo AI algorithm beat a human at the world's hardest game. This is a historic moment in computer science and artificial intelligence. So what exactly is Google DeepMind? Where did it come from? And what can the company's artificial intelligence actually do? In this video, we'll find out.
A computer program beat a human brain at the ancient Chinese board game of Go. The final score 4-1, a triumph for artificial intelligence equipped with human intuition.
The victory of a program over a human in the ancient board game Go has sparked intrigue and, in some cases, concern. It shows that a machine has approximated human intuition and outsmarted the best human brain in the game. It's something that scientists hadn't expected to happen for at least another decade, and it's a giant leap for artificial intelligence, showing that machines can learn on their own.
I think maybe the game ended.
No, I don't think so, because it looks like Lee is still counting.
No, I think he resigned.
Wow, I think you're right. Wow. Wow.
This was the moment a computer called AlphaGo beat a master of the ancient Chinese game Go. It's not the first time a grandmaster's been humbled by a machine. But what makes AlphaGo different is that it's the first demonstration that machines can truly learn and think in a human way. AlphaGo's victory shocked experts in the artificial intelligence community. Many thought such an event was at least a decade away.
So firstly, a few questions. Why is this important, and what's all the fuss? AlphaGo shows that machines can really learn. How so? Well, instead of using brute force to calculate all the moves it could make like previous AIs, AlphaGo used reinforcement learning and neural networks to mimic the learning process of a human brain. Keep in mind that the ancient Chinese game Go has as many more possible moves than chess as there are atoms in the entire universe. So there's no way of just calculating every possible move on the board. That's practically impossible. For this reason, Go is the holy grail of AI, and learning to do such a task from scratch is a huge feat. Further to this, DeepMind's creators say that the algorithm can learn many more things without alteration or guidance. In other words, the AI is general purpose.
We always used to talk about, well, if we could eventually crack Go and have a program that could beat the world champion, then we must have invented some generic, general purpose algorithm. So maybe we're on the cusp of all of that. If you ask a great Go player why they played a particular move, sometimes they'll just tell you it felt right. So the one way you could think of it is that Go is a much more intuitive game, whereas chess is a much more logic-based game.
So what is DeepMind? Google DeepMind is a British artificial intelligence company that was founded in September of 2010 as DeepMind Technologies. It was renamed when it was acquired by Google in 2014 for $500 million. Interestingly enough, this was just after Facebook had just finished negotiations with them in 2013. And another fun fact, Elon Musk is actually an investor in the company, just to keep an eye on them, of course. DeepMind received the Company of the Year award by the Cambridge Computer Laboratory in 2014. So where did DeepMind come from? DeepMind was first a startup co-founded by Demis Hassabis in 2010. Demis was a child genius of sorts, and went from being a chess prodigy and reaching master level at age 13, onto becoming the lead programmer of Lionhead Studios for groundbreaking games such as Black and White. After this, he went on to start his own gaming studio before leaving to complete some extra studies at the University College of London. This is where he would meet the future co-founders of DeepMind in 2010. So what is the goal of DeepMind Technologies? According to their website, their goal is to solve intelligence. They are trying to achieve this by combining the best techniques from machine learning and systems neuroscience to build powerful general-purpose learning algorithms. Or in other words, they want to formalize intelligence, find out what it is and how it works. The end game is not just to implement this into machines, but also understand the human brain. Demis explains further. Quote, attempting to distill intelligence into an algorithmic construct may prove to be the best path to understanding some of the enduring mysteries of our minds. End quote. The key here is that this machine is general purpose. This is very important, but more on this later. Okay, so how does this all work? The AI from DeepMind uses a technique called deep reinforcement learning, which makes it very different from other AIs, such as IBM's Watson or the primitive Siri or Google Now. The AIs just mentioned were only developed for a predefined purpose and only function within their scope. DeepMind claims that their system is not pre-programmed and it learns from experience using only raw pixels as data input.
So the way we start off training AlphaGo is by showing it 100,000 games that strong amateurs have played that we've downloaded from the internet. And we first initially get AlphaGo to mimic the human player. But of course, ultimately, we would like AlphaGo to be stronger than human amateurs and compete with the top professionals. So the way we do that is, after we take that first version that's learnt to mimic human play, we then allow it to play itself 30 million times on our servers, and using reinforcement learning, the system learns to improve itself incrementally through it avoiding its errors and increasing and improving its win rate against older versions of itself. And after all these games, then you end up with a new version that can beat the old version, the original version, around 80–90% of the time.
Technically, the reinforcement that DeepMind uses is model-free, meaning that it doesn't need a structure or set of rules to learn. According to MIT's take on the Google algorithm, the neural network, in theory, should be able to access an external memory in a manner that mimics the short-term memory of the human brain. In a way, it almost seems like our brain's design might be the most efficient way for the creation of local intelligence. Who would have guessed? So that's all good. What about this general purpose term? What does that actually mean? Well, because the machine learns from raw experience and data, it can perform well across a wide variety of tasks, straight out of the box. Okay, so that's enough talk. Let's watch the system in action, learning how to play Breakout. And remember, the machine didn't have any foreknowledge as to what task it was going to complete. It had to figure out how to do everything only from its own experience.
is the machine before training. So this is literally the first time the machine has ever seen this data stream, and it's controlling the green rocket here, and you can see it's losing its 3 lives immediately. So it's basically terrible at the game, as you would expect. Now after training, this is like overnight, we leave it playing the game overnight on a normal computer, so for about 8 hours. You come back in the morning, and now it's superhuman level. So now the machine can play Space Invaders better than any human can. It's modeled the world, the game world, so well, it knows where the Space Invaders will be ahead of time. So as the Space Invaders speed up, when you get less of them on the screen, it fires the final shot as a kind of predictive shot of where the final Space Invader will be in a few seconds' time.
But the cool thing is, after understanding how to play a few games, it will be able to transfer this knowledge and understanding across more games. At the moment, DeepMind is currently playing games from the 1970s and 80s, but work is currently being done on more complex 3D games such as Doom, which appeared in the early 90s. So what could general purpose AI be used for?
We'd love to use these types of algorithms for things like healthcare and science, and improve the speed of breakthroughs in those areas by helping human experts achieve more.
In a number of interviews, Dennis has talked about applications in healthcare, smartphone assistance, and robotics as possible applications for general AI. Some other applications of such AI include online customer service, computer vision, finance, general computer science, and news publishing and writing. General purpose AI actually could be huge. It can be thought of as another emerging science. Much like Newtonian physics laid the groundwork for technologies such as rockets, a science founded in general-purpose digital neural networks that use reinforcement learning could lay the groundwork for unimaginable things in the near future. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the video, but there's one pressing question. Should we be worried? In the thousands of years of meaningful civilization, our modern existence right now is an anomaly. We've overcome the limits of nature with technology that helps us facilitate such a lifestyle. But artificial intelligence is different. The reason being, AI is the first thing humans have created that tends to function in a way that we can't predict. So, should we worry? My belief is that the fear of the unknown is mostly what drives the hysteria that arises from AI anxiety. There's not enough time in this video to go through all the theories of how things could turn out, but it's an interesting topic within itself. The website Wait But Why has a fairly interesting and comprehensive look at AI. We don't have time to explore it all, but the article does raise an interesting point though. It's about how humans have an inability to perceive exponential change. For a long time, people aren't going to take AI seriously, and it would seem like progress is very slow, but then suddenly, it could overtake our wildest expectations. One of the methods that AI could use to achieve this outcome is by giving itself an ability for self-improvement, thus following the law of accelerating returns. Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk have both shown their reservations towards AI. There is a possibility that AI could be malicious and would outwit us, but at this stage, we really just don't know yet. As for DeepMind, one of their conditions after Google's acquisition was that they establish an AI ethics board, and I think most of us would agree that that's a prudent decision. All in all, we may be at a historic point, a critical point in artificial intelligence. The future could see deep neural learning and general purpose AI in our smartphones and computers. Some say that we might even have to start thinking of a whole new economy. Reason being, AI could take over a lot of information-intensive, specialized jobs, leaving only jobs that are creative or emotional in nature, something that AI might never achieve.
Facebook has been toying with artificial intelligence in its chatting features, but its robots may have gotten out of hand. According to several reports, Facebook's artificial intelligence researchers had to shut down 2 chatbots after they developed a strange English shorthand. The bots were supposed to learn how to trade virtual objects with each other, but instead began repeating words in a mysterious and nonsensical pattern. Facebook researchers say that the pattern mirrors how humans develop speech patterns, but that hasn't stopped public fear of the AI's capability. CNET section editor Dan Ackerman joins me now. Dan, how should we be reacting to this strange language, if we can even call it that?
This is one of those stories that has such a great headline, it grabs you right away. And when you look at it, it's not quite as explosive as science fiction movie-ish as it really is, but the real story is almost more interesting, where they were trying to develop these bots that would be good at negotiating with humans. And they said, what happens if we put two of them together? And what happens when you put two machines that kind of speak their own language together? They start to talk to each other, they develop their own ideas, and they come up with, like you said, this sort of shorthand that eventually becomes incomprehensible to us, but is comprehensible to them. The problem is that doesn't work for what Facebook wanted, which is being able to talk to humans, and that's really why they said this is not working out. We're going to shut this down.
Okay, they didn't shut it down because they necessarily thought that these bots were achieving some sort of singularity. Or some sort of independent intelligence, and we're creating a language, correct?
Officially, the story is no. But they did say that seriously. They did say that having the bots talk to each other and develop their own language didn't fit what they were trying to do, which is make a bot that could talk to a person in a more realistic way. It was almost moving in the opposite direction. So it was an interesting aside, but they didn't get the answer they were looking for. So they're going to try something else.
Does this say more, the headlines that this generated, does it say more about our culture and our animosity and maybe fear towards artificial intelligence, especially as it does make real advances?
Oh, that is 100% true. And there are so many great advances going on right now in artificial intelligence, in machine learning, which is a version of that. And these fears, they go back 100 years to our initial ideas about robots, self-aware machines that would eventually take jobs from people and be able to make their own decisions, and all the things that we've been worried about. They're becoming more crystalline now, but they're topics people have written about for literally 100 years now.
Yeah, machines are taking jobs. They have for a long time. But when we talk about this particular program that Facebook was experimenting, would you consider it a failure, and what does it mean for their AI development?
I mean, when you're developing, AI, there's really no such thing as a failure because you learn from everything. And what they learned was these machines would come up with their own very efficient ways of communicating with each other. And that's actually very useful if you're working on machine-to-machine communication in the future, which is something that you're definitely going to have to do. It just didn't fit in with what they were trying to do, which is basically make a bot that could maybe sell you insurance online without having to talk to a human agent.
One of the things you talk about, all the recent advances in AI and the fact that that Go game was again beaten by an AI, the Go person was beaten by an AI machine. A lot of ethical issues have come up. What sort of ethical issues spring from this particular case of machines speaking to machine?
Sure, I think the big concern people have is that the AIs and machines would be talking to each other and we would not be able to understand what they were saying or figure out what their motives were, if you could even call it that. But definitely that case you mentioned where Google built this AlphaGo robot that could beat the world's best Go player, which is an ancient game, one of the most complicated board games ever, that pushed people right to the forefront of saying, now we have to really start worrying about this because there's almost no task out there that a machine now can do better than a human in terms of mental computation.
Yeah. About this case at Facebook and this idea that perhaps these robots were somehow developing an independent language, is that overblown given the evidence? And how much of that is a result of this spat that you have between Tesla founder Elon Musk, who seems to be more cautious with AI, and Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, who is very optimistic about the future of artificial intelligence?
It shows you there's a real range of opinions out there, even among very smart people. Elon Musk has always been on the forefront of warning people about the dangers of out-of-control AI. Stephen Hawking is someone else who does that. While Mark Zuckerberg, who's frankly more in the AI business, as Facebook is developing a lot of chatbots and similar devices, has a more optimistic view. Recently, they got in a little bit of a social media feud on a Facebook Live thing. Mark Zuckerberg said that people who are spreading fear and disinformation about AI are doing everyone a disservice. And Elon Musk hopped on Twitter at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you know what happens when you tweet at 3 o'clock in the morning? You don't always come off as your best self. He said that he talked to Mark and he was very unknowledgeable about that particular topic.
Facebook is using a lot of AI, as you say. Dan Ackerman, thank you.
Thank you.